move on, Keith, talk about West Ham United, because there's been some suggestions actually that ticket prices will increase, could actually allow further investment into the squad. What do you make of that for them and that particular suggestion?
I find it strange because, even if you put, say, 50 quid on each ticket, which would be ridiculous, and there'd be a revolution, of course, but you still only make about 3 million quid. So it's not significant in terms of the the sort of revenue that you can make. And while they say they may put it, what are they going to get these days? A young 16-year-old player for that sort of increase? And even they are now more expensive than that. So, I think it's a case of Karen Brady saying, no, look, hang on, this is the reason why we're doing it. But actually, it's not the reason. It's just to try and keep an increase going and to get more revenue in general. Of course, it will end up, in theory, going to the manager, but it's not a significant amount. And so, while it may help to get towards the increase to try and get more players, that won't be the main reason. And certainly an increase of, £50 is not reasonable and would never be accepted, I'm sure, in West Ham. So we'll have to wait and see what comes back. But it's certainly not a significant amount of money that they're going to raise from ticket increases.
Looking then, Keith, at potentially revenue streams that could sort of bolster their transfer budget, what would be the best ways for clubs going forwards in 2024 to bolster their revenue and then thus, therefore, spending more in the transfer market? What would you say?
The sort of things that you've got to really work on now, and there is new technology coming through which can help this, is really monetizing your overseas fan base. That's a big untapped revenue stream. And there are companies now leading that way in terms of, with technology. Before, if we just go back a little bit, a few years, when there was an overseas fan base and everybody looked at this idea, direct mail was actually the choice that you really had. You had to try and create a database of your fans throughout Malaysia, which gave all sorts of issues about addresses and different languages, etc. But now new technology has come through that makes that much, much cheaper, much more accurate, much more visible. And so it's coming up with the correct programs for your overseas fans that can genuinely monetize them. I mean, Man United have talked about having 1.1 billion fans overseas. You get £10 a fan, then of course that's a significant amount of money. That's where I think there could be money. I think also there's got to be a bigger increase in some of the perhaps more social causes and work overseas in different countries, again, that could attract major sponsors in areas that there's been no sponsors before. So whether you're running youth programs, health programs in different countries under the banner of the club, I think those social causes are the areas that can really grow and are still new to sponsors, but I think can quickly show some significant amounts of money. And I've seen some signs of that sort of thing happening already. And I know that some of the clubs are starting to think about that sort of area. So it's all about new areas that you've got to go to. You can't keep on milking the same cows every year. Broadcast does seem to have stalled slightly. So I don't think you can count on a big increase every year. So you've got to be creative. You've got to find those new areas to monetize and the new areas to bring in new sponsors in categories that you haven't done before. So that's where I think they've got to focus. It takes creativity. It takes ambition. And I know all too well, as a chief executive, you can be distracted on day-to-day issues a lot when you're trying to plan these longer-term things. So it's a case of sticking to it, getting the right people in place, and building something that is going to go for the next 5-10 years.
We know, Keith, looking at some transfer news, the club are interested in a new number 9. One of those names that's been listed is John Duran. What are your thoughts on that potential deal? And would he solve West Ham's striker issue going forwards?
Yeah, they've had a problem really with the number 9. I'd say right from the days of Haller, and I've seen a number of forwards come in that haven't quite clicked. I rate Duran. I think he could be a good player for them. I think he would fit the style. We've got to see what Lopetegui's going to do. But I think, there's been some fan disquiet already after the first game. It's a little bit early, but still, there's rumblings already. It's amazing. You're now even just 30 minutes away from a crisis, never mind 3 games. But still, I think Duran has shown the young talent that he's got. I think he could be a real serious Premier League striker. So if he's injury free, I think he could be an answer.
One of those other names that's been linked is Dominic Calvert-Lewin from Everton. I know we've discussed him potentially leaving Goodison in previous weeks and episodes, Keith. In terms of his sort of valuation, considering that Newcastle had those bids rejected, what do you think the club value him at, and what could potentially be accepted from West Ham's point of view?
I think we're looking around about the 25 to 30 million mark. He's only got a season left, but there's no doubt when he's fit, he is a Premier League striker of the highest order. It can be seen that he was on the verge of the England team. He's played. He got selected when he had a run of fitness. Thanks to Sean Dyche being genuinely patient and really clever about the way he's handled his injury issue last season. He did lay him off when he really needed him back, but he still stuck by the player and his body. So I think whoever gets Calvert-Lewin will be very, very lucky. I think he's a genuinely good Premier League striker. He's turned down the contract offer from Everton right now. There's only 1 year left on his contract, so that's why I'm putting him at that lower level. I'm hoping that if there's a way to do it, that Friedkin, if that gets settled, will be able to keep him at the club, because I think in the new stadium, I think DCL, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, would love to play there. And I think he does. I think he's a great Everton player as well. I think he gets the club, he understands it. So I wouldn't like to see him go. But if West Ham can pick him up for 25 million, to me, that's a no-brainer. I would take him if they can. He's quality, and provided he's fit, he's going to be there.
And to wrap up on that, Keith, what did you make of the sort of reaction online following their first preseason game where they drew? But what did you make of it, and sort of the vague meltdown there was on social media?
Well, that's all it was. And, and you just don't know who is really behind the social media comments. You don't know. Listen, for all I know, it could have been Arsenal fans or Spurs fans. You just don't know these days. And certainly, I think any sensible West Ham fan isn't in a meltdown by any means. And I just think it's a bit of a sideshow. But no, look, you've got to give a new manager time to settle in. If they're going to make any judgments, let's see where they are at Easter next year, or certainly, I know everybody will be looking by Christmas, but certainly, I think we've got to calm down and let's get realistic about it.
You've just watched a segment from Football Insider's brand new podcast, The Inside Track, with me, Lewis Pearce, alongside the guests on the show. Thanks very much for tuning in. Please do give the video a like, comment your thoughts on the topic, and feel free to share on your social media pages. If you want to listen to the full podcast episode, click the link in the description below. Keep your eyes peeled for plenty more content and exclusives here on The Inside Track.